Hello, listeners, and welcome to the latest episode of the AdQuick Advertising Podcast, a podcast that explores the intersection of content, creativity, tech, all of the things that you care about. Today, we have a special guest. We have John Gargiulo. I think I said that right.
You said it perfectly.
He's a marketing leader and startup founder. He's ex-Airbnb, a really cool guy. He's done a lot of things, and we'll get more into his background in a minute. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
And John, you're still in Bay Area.
Yeah, hanging on here. We're in Menlo Park since 2011. Moved out here from New York, and yeah, it's pretty crazy expensive. But I gently remind my wife that supply and demand. It's because a lot of people want to be here. It's pretty awesome.
Of course, and I was there for a number of years. I hear that San Francisco, in particular, is back because of the AI boom.
It feels back, absolutely. Like all the big AI companies seem to be downtown there. They're also cleaning up downtown. We got a new mayor, new city council. So yeah, it feels like we maybe bumped along the bottom and are starting our way back up again.
That's really exciting. I'll have to plan a trip out there. I think my last trip was during the pandemic. I actually almost went to work back for another Bay Area company, which would have been fine. I'm in Austin now, but didn't quite work out. I actually think they ended up not even hiring anyone. So, but I have a special place in my heart for Bay Area, even though I'm not there anymore. I always root for it because it should be like, the number one city in America, right? It should be like San Francisco and New York should have an ongoing, trade-off of who can be best. So
it's great. I think since the pandemic, there's a lot of great cities now, but yeah, I mean, this is like technology's taken over, right? The top 5 companies by valuation in the globe are tech companies, and this is kind of the tech center. So I didn't know that was coming when we moved out here in 2011. And it's been kind of a crazy thing. Sitting at coffee this morning at Coffee Bar, the people to my right were talking about brain neurosurgery with AI, and to my left was like some big startup raising money. So when I grew up in Boston, that was not the case.
It's really interesting because where we are in Austin is sort of emerging as like a media capital of America. I can't I booked time to record podcasts downtown with people, and they're always fully booked. We have Joe Rogan, Lex, we've got all these guys here. And there's obviously a great tech scene as well, but it's really interesting. A lot of media people, a lot of comedians are making their home in Austin.
Oh yeah. Austin's just been on fire for like a decade plus now.
So, John, you've had a really interesting career, particularly for our listeners, because you're kind of a serial founder. And then also at one point you found yourself in-house at Airbnb, which is obviously a great company and really cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, your story, how you decided to be an entrepreneur, like what made you go in-house for a little while to Airbnb? Just, the 2 or 5 minute version for us to get to know you.
Yeah, I'll go for the 2-minute one. I always kind of knew about myself that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Somewhere in my 20s, I looked around my family and realized that my father, both my brothers, my uncle, like pretty much everyone had started their own companies, big or small in some sense. So it was always kind of coming. And then, moved out here in 2011, joined a pre-launch startup called BlueStacks. That's was in recent back, still doing really well. Grew that to over 1 billion downloads, running mobile apps and games on PC, which we had no idea if anyone would care about, but 1 billion people did. And then I was at Airbnb for a few years, ended up leading product marketing there and working with just unbelievable people, our CMO, our head of performance marketing, and then saw this kind of wide gulf between that Mad Men brand world and, performance-y pivot tables and spreadsheets world and nascent Facebook advertising, and started Ready Set with Sambu Makalu from Nanigans, which is really, I didn't use this word for years, but an agency that's focused from the get-go on vertical video, UGC style native creative agency focused on UGC vertical video creative, and took off faster than we expected. We flew past 10 million revenue run rate in a couple of years. Clients like DoorDash, Hims and Hers, still clients today. So I love being an entrepreneur. I think it always looks sexier than it is every day. Intraday, there's something really exciting and something really tough that you have to work through. But I think business is problem solving, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the The really great entrepreneurs have it's definitely another form of creativity where you're thinking through problems, you're thinking through you know how to create either games for people or processes and
Right.
platforms to do things better. So I love that. I think at this point, to be a tech entrepreneur, you have to understand a lot of both creativity, game mechanics, all of these different concepts that you as a marketer would understand. So in terms of AirPost, do you want to tell us what that is and what you're up to?
For sure. So early on in Ready Set, as we're making these video ads at scale for these, decent sized companies that are going from that Mad Men era that I came out of in a past life. I started my career in brand advertising as a creative in the New York agency world, spending 5 months and 50 meetings to make 3 TV commercials and not knowing whether they'd work or not. Fast forwarding to starting Ready Set in 2019, where we're making 13 video ads a week for DoorDash. We quickly realized that these video ads are mostly formulaic to a degree. There's 3 reasons why. There's before and afters. There's all the acronyms and direct response sort of frameworks. And what we did from the very start was start to collect footage, vertical UGC style footage that works in ads on Facebook and TikTok, transparently with our clients in our contracts that said, look, if you're not using this shot of this LA actress on a jog, or can't find something in her fridge or whatever, a year from now, it reverts back to us. And so everything that we've shot without logos or products in it, which is a lot of B-roll, we have the largest vertical video UGC library in the world now by far. It's almost 500,000 clips. And we did that because we realized, if we could build that sort of, think of it like a kitchen pantry of ingredients, footages, emojis, music tracks, etc. And we had this huge recipe book we've developed of ads, concepts, the ones I listed, and hundreds more. We could build these sort of Robo-Chefs to build the dishes, send them out to the dining room floor, and then see what happens, see what comes back, what people like, and it's a virtuous cycle. So we started building that a few years ago with software, hence the Robo-Chefs. Hired now up to 17 engineers. Most of them had worked together at a successful startup in the video space called Olapic before, and just launching publicly now. We've had a really successful alpha, and our goal is to help e-commerce companies that are trying to just keep up. Meta says even if you're only spending $25K a month, you should have 25 to 50 new video ads every week. Most people are not doing that, right? Volume and variety is the spice of great ROAS. And so we're trying to create software that you can just literally put a PDP or your Amazon link in, and we give you an instant gallery of hundreds of video ads that you can test.
This is really interesting. So is this, you found your early users are more e-commerce shops where it's a direct sale to conversion? Are you also doing any like larger brands or any B2B longer sales cycle stuff, or is that not really what this does well at?
I think I'll answer that question this way. Think back to the pantry of ingredients. There's 3 kinds of footage that are going into the ads. It's mostly driven by typically a voiceover, right? That we write, use AI to acclimate to your brand, your value props. We pre-fill out a huge brief for you, so we can understand the company. And then imagine there's a voiceover track down. Now imagine we've got to find ingredients from the pantry to put on top of it. What clip goes where? There's the customer's footage. There's our 400,000 pieces of footage. And then there's what we call AstroTurf footage, where we could take this, water bottle that you have on Amazon with a white background, the photo that you're using there, and you use AI image models to put it in a guy's hand at the gym, and then use another video model to have him walking slowly, and now you got a clip. If it's a B2B company, they typically don't have thousands of product video clips. They may have a lot fewer. So we'll be moving into that area, but I'd say for right now, it's in this very nascent stage. It's really built for anyone selling anything physical on the internet.
That's really interesting. It seems almost like you're giving a leg up to small and medium-sized companies to sort of do something in a way that's more internet native, internet friendly than maybe they might get from a big expensive agency that, like you mentioned at the beginning, spending weeks and weeks for that one piece of creative that you don't even know if it's going to work.
That's exactly right. We're really starting with folks that are mid-sized companies that don't have the resources to go spend 20, 30, $100,000 a month on a big agency. They don't need to have all those meetings and QBRs and 18 people around the conference table on the other end of the Zoom, but they need ads. And video ads are really hard to come by at any quality. And AI is now good enough, and this is just a hyper focus of ours, that if you give it the ingredients, and we've got them, in a smart way, and you have the different recipes, you can actually make video ads that are indistinguishable from manually produced ones. We have a Notion document called 99 Problems, and it's things big and small that we have identified as the gap that we hear from customers between, our ads and ones that took weeks and thousands of dollars to make.
It's all really interesting. I'm curious. So I'm bullish on AI for video. One area that seems to be really contentious in the online debate is actually not ads. It's more things like movies. And I find the discussion so interesting because to me, from where I sit, I'm like, oh, if I'm like a low, no budget filmmaker, AI could eventually help me have the right B-roll and footage and effects to do something where it actually feels really well produced. And I think at the same time, like, some consumers take, the really purist auteurs take this approach. Well, everything should be done by human, but it's interesting because I think that one thing that gets lost in the discourse is what we've seen so far with a lot of video on the content side is definitely like slop is what people term it, just like really low quality stuff. And so it's interesting because I see where it's going, but I also see why some people have anxieties about having AI and video touch like the more purist auteur content. And there's actually some advertisers who see ads as an art form as well. Because there seems to be a little bit of a, it seems like we're stacking people up on the Luddite side and stacking people up on the like pure AI bro side. And there's obviously like this nice middle ground where you use AI where appropriate. And, you still have a human making, the editorial decisions, right?
That's exactly right. And I think the middle ground is getting blurrier. It's getting better. I mean, I did a presentation recently at a conference and I showed Will Smith eating spaghetti, the infamous clip a year ago and a year later. And, the year ago was a joke with like all pixelated and weird looking. And now it's pretty smooth and pretty realistic. It's a little uncanny. It's maybe 91% of the way there, up from 38. But at this rate of improvement, it's going to get much better. I think that's what most people don't grasp is it's really easy to see a piece of video, for example, because video is really hard to do well with AI. It's very hard for the models, if somebody walks behind a lamppost, to know that that person should come out the other side in the exact same way. To not recognize this is the worst it will ever be. And it's not standing still, not at all. It's moving extremely fast. So I think the more interesting conversation is if it's going to get better at this rate, and it's going to compound over the next 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it's incredible. It's like, we're not talking about 10 or 20. We're talking about in 2, it'll be night and day from now. And it's night and day now than it was 2 years ago. Then what does the world look like? And I tend to agree with you. And I used to make like independent films for fun, as in my 20s. I noticed, for example, with video, even early on, even a year or two ago, used to be 30 years ago, if you wanted to do a shot of Chicago, you needed to rent a helicopter for tens of thousands of dollars. Then drones happened, and then stock happened. Well, now you can go on AI and say, I want to fly over Chicago, but I want it to be like, on a thunderstormy night and, for this cop drama or whatever. And it will make it, and it's pretty good. If you want people, if you want to have the same person in this, scene by scene, if you want to have audio, those things are not great yet. I think you still get a lot of, an alien riding a horse on the moon and, isn't this cool? Sort of, but it's getting to a point where you're going to be able to arm those filmmakers, those ad makers with something that can really help them imagine their visions and imagine their ads.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I think you'll see people doing human things just for fun. And we kind of see examples of that where look at Christopher Nolan, who he uses CGI in his films, but then also in Tenet, he crashed a 747 into a building. It's obviously still using CGI as well, but I think for him that was fun. And I think we'll always have filmmakers like doing things in physical space as sort of, not just because it looks better, but also they want to do it. And that may be something in the future, like with a lot of things, I think like you'll have to get to a certain point to be able to have resource. But I think AI is another equalizer that can sort of get anyone with an idea up to a good enough place. And that's kind of cool.
100%. Yeah. And that there's something to be said for that. It can bring the price down a lot. One analogy we sometimes talk about is there was a time when if anyone wanted a desk table or a kitchen table or a coffee table, you had to go find a guy in town 150 years ago who knew how to make tables and wait for months and have meetings with them and pay them a lot of money. And they were a craftsman, and that was really cool, but that was the only way to get a table. And most people couldn't afford a nice table or whatever. It's like kind of like AI, and AirPost is like Crate and Barrel or something. It's like, the craftsman thing is awesome. And there still are craftsmen today. Our breakfast table was made by a guy. It's awesome. But it's democratized, IKEA, like now anyone can have a cool table. I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. As a note that if you do build something from IKEA, I think that interesting people are like, well, what if I actually made the parts myself and, did it from even further scratch than just IKEA? So I think it's a gateway drug for interesting people whenever you can give them any software that makes something. I think the people who are high agency want to explore more. And then for everyone else, they probably weren't going to do anything in the first place. So, you can lead the horse to water.
That's a great point. It's not like they're stamping out tables and like the government's, delivering them to your house and everyone has the same tables and, that would be very soul destroying. It's really a super tool. It's the ability to form your own things, your own way. 3D printing, all these things are things for people with agency to go have fun with.
So John, you're building a company, obviously based on AI. And I think you're probably in a position to answer this question in a different kind of way than our usual guests who are implementing AI. But so as it stands right now for marketing teams, when you're hiring new people, should you ask for specific AI case studies? How should you determine their AI readiness? Is this even something you need to talk about? What do you think for marketing teams and AI, like where their management should be at when they're bringing on talent?
It's tough for marketers because 3 years ago, we hit this inflection point where, to my mind, I think a lot of other people, I remember I felt very seen watching Dave Gerhardt's new podcast at the time or YouTube thing, and all these CMOs and VPs were saying the same thing. Everything that used to work had stopped working. Outbound was not reliable anymore as everyone's inboxes were full of stuff. Just all the channels and tools just seemed to not really work. And you had all these great marketers out there failing to break through for their brands. And then we got hit with AI. And now that was pre-AI. Now with AI, it's like, oh my God, this, everyone's talking about marketing using AI and how it could be really useful for so many things. And a lot of folks feel like they're falling behind. And I totally understand that. I would answer your question by saying, if you're a senior, particularly if you're more junior, you ought to be all over what AI can do as a super weapon for marketing, because there are a lot of things. At the very least, you ought to be uber ChatGPT fluent or Perplexity or pick your model. Using deep research, using Operator to go and research things, knowing all the AI startups that are popping up. Most of them, the quality is not there, or they're not quite ready for prime time, or it's more of a bet on the future, even AirPost. However, there are some that are really, really useful. For example, I just heard about one called GrowthX that I'm going to be talking to that's like cranks out content, SEO, blog posts. A lot of people listening to this probably don't have a lot of SEO, AI SEO focused posts going up on their site for their product, maybe in years, maybe in months, maybe they've been meaning to get to it, 17th on their priority list. This company, and I think you're in AirPost, and you're going to see others in different channels and different spaces in marketing, are raising their hands and saying, guys, we can use AI to build really good custom posts specific to you versus competitors, just the 0 to 1 in so many areas. And we can charge you a little or a lot, whatever. But at think if you're a marketer, you've got to be all over that. And it's changing weekly. And it's scary and it's intense, but I think the best people that I talk to, they're excited about it, fluent in it. And otherwise people are going to fall behind.
Yeah, I actually think I'm very bullish about marketers here, because I think marketers have been conditioned to be early adopters.
Yes.
I think for a while in the previous guard, there was like a generation of boomers that like hated the internet. They're like, why would we need a Facebook page? You know, they even thought like, why would we need a website? And actually, like the Gen X, millennials, some boomer marketers are okay in adopt things, but I noted this. We're in a new home and my air conditioner broke. It's a specific model, and I needed to find someone to come fix it like that day, because it was, you know, we're in Texas.
Yeah.
And I found what was definitely an AI generated page for my specific unit on this local guy's website that ranked first for it, because what else would rank for me querying this specific unit in my specific neighborhood? Obviously an AI generated page, but I'm like, I don't care that it's AI generated, because I know that they can service my unit. And I actually went through the little chat widget on their website. They called me back and I hired them for service. And I'm like, this local HVAC company is crushing it, right?
There you go. Exactly. And it's probably some new in their career person who's just obsessed with AI that just made that work. Even video, like I'm on TikTok, you know, way too much to say it's for my job. And I'll get these AI, it took me an embarrassing, like probably extra few weeks to realize, oh wait, these are made, of course they're made with AI. Good voiceovers, Adam, talking about how 1066 was the most important year in world history and how England became England. And I'm an intellectually curious person and I'll be watching it. And it's an AI voice that sounds like, you know, some guy on Dateline or something. And it's talking through the captions and it's a bunch of AI images of, you know, fighting but there's enough of a real story there. And I know that it's real history and it's correct, that I'm watching it for 40, 50 seconds. Then I realize this is just a farm that's putting out tens of thousands of these things. But you know what? I was talking to my son about it. The content was good enough that I was interested in watching it. So we're getting to that tipping point.
See, I've watched like a minute of a YouTube video that was suggested to me, and I knew it was AI like a minute in, and I just turned them off because it was fine. But at the end of the day, like I want to find cool people with cool ideas and ultimately subscribe to them and have the relationship with them. So I mentioned the HVAC example because I actually think AI is super useful for like transactional stuff. Like if it helps me, anything that gets someone to like a transaction quicker when they're looking for a purchase, that's like really good marketing. It like almost doesn't matter about the quality. It's like, is this the right thing I needed? Great, I'm going to buy it. And
so for better or worse, sorry to interrupt. I think this is, hearing you talk as I get it. Here's my prediction. I say for better or worse, I'm not saying this is a good thing. This conversation you and I are having right now, in 25 years, Adam of 2055 will be referring to the whatever we're called. Like, yeah, people used to be like, I don't want to talk to an AI, watch an AI video. It's like the movie Her. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think that's going to be the world. Andre Karpathy made an AI podcast with the podcasting, that Google podcasting app called History's Mysteries. And I listened with my kids to like the story of the Mary Celeste, the ghost ship in the 1800s, and Goblet Techie, whatever it's called. And 15 minutes into the 25-minute episodes, he only made 5. I was like, okay, that's cool to see. It's really good, right? And it was really gripping and it was suspenseful. And I was turning it off, and my 11-year-old son's like, no, keep playing it. I want to hear what happens next. Like, I think that our kids and our kids' kids is certainly will just be so used to like, I don't care if these are AI people or not. I can't tell. Whereas I totally can relate to what you're saying. It's like, I'd rather be talking to a human. I think you and I are making that choice, not out of rationality per se, but because we want to support the humans. And I think that wall will fall over time, again, for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, so, okay, then take that to its logical conclusion. What happens in an economy where we're, you know, supporting content generated by robots? What happens to, what do human creators do all day?
I think it's like every epoch in history. I don't think, and not that you're suggesting this, I don't think it means we all sit on our hands and, you know, all the jobs go away and it's horrific for everyone's economy. I think that's what's been predicted, of course, like 19 times in a row since 1800, and it's never happened. In fact, it gets better and better. My favorite example is there's a great photograph, and this was true. I researched it because it's just a photo, you know, you never know. There were people called computers, like that was their job. Their title, their card said computer, at insurance companies in Syracuse, New York, and there are floors and floors of them. And they were, you know, they were doing, you know, abacuses or whatever they used in 1921. And now, those thousands of people don't work at insurance companies because they have computers, and insurance companies have way more employees than they did then. So I think that's the sort of overall arm wavy thing that's going to happen, Adam, is like, we'll all use higher parts of our brain. We won't have to compute. We won't have to sit and think of a blog post when AI can just do it. But we'll have to think strategically and creatively about how to steer this business. I saw a guy much smarter than I am, a startup founder on Twitter, semi-famous person, saying that ideas and coming up with, like, it used to be, okay, anyone can have a startup idea, but you have to be really good at execution and coding and making blog posts for your blog, whatever. That's going to actually become the commodity, and then it's going to be who has the most creative and different ideas. So I don't know how it'll pan out, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be positive. At least I'm optimistic that it'll be more in that way, and less like, oh crap, we're all out of a job and AI is just doing everything for us.
Yeah, I think there's another scenario too where you kind of get this inverse of high level concierge service involves a human, and for everyone else you just get to talk to the AI and the robot. But if you're like willing to pay the higher tier, they'll actually give you not just like a low level support person, but like actually a pretty competent person for travel, for planning, wedding planning, things like this. I think like the human will be ultimately like this thing that's a luxury good that you spend extra.
The funny thing about that, now I'm just being dramatic, but I think the implication there is that the human's better at that, and I'm not sure that's the case.
Right? I think I don't know that it's better. I think it's more that you have someone hand-holding you, and until we have physical robots, I think that'll matter in like physical industries, like
for sure,
right?
For sure.
So, but the other thing is there is a logical point where the computers are just so good at everything, and we all have to have service industry jobs or physical world atoms jobs, and the bits jobs are kind of if one person is as efficient as 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, they're like, I don't think there's any scenario there wouldn't be as many bits jobs if machines are going to do a lot of it. And like realistically, if you're like actually realistic about the intelligence levels and like average levels of creativity, like a lot of people aren't very creative, aren't very intelligent. Like what work would there be for them?
I think the reason I feel okay about that is it's got some fancy name, some theorem or whatever. But basically, I'm trying to think of the example.
Jevons paradox, where there's just more complexity.
No. Sorry. It was Satya Nadella told it. I don't know if it was that one, but it was the one where, maybe you tell me, it was the one where when something becomes a lot more abundant, people think, I think he used the example of oil, when it was like, oh, now we have like endless energy under the ground. And so the price of it collapsed. And so like, price of oil's plummeted. Oh, remember the good old days of 1851? Well, now it's, 1910 and the oil's cheaper because it's so much of it. No, actually over the long term, it gets, people use it more.
It's Jevons. That one's Jevons paradox.
Okay, yes, you're right. Jevan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you got it right. So sorry, you'll explain it better than I am. Can you? How do you?
Yeah, it's when it's like the example uses driving cars, and when they build more roads, it's like there's more cars. I forget the specific.
It's basically when something becomes abundant, people assume it's really it's going to be cheap or not attractive anymore. When in actuality, everyone uses it. It's been coming up a lot with AI, where it's like, oh, well, these models are just going to be a race to the bottom, and they're not going to be successful. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe their prices will go down by 80%, but the usage might go up by, thousands of percent. So, not to get off track, but like, I think that's basically what's going to happen with marketing and our world as well. It'll be, well, shoot, like if AI could be smarter than most marketers, what are marketers going to do? I don't think it's going to work that way. I think it's going to be, well, there'll be like way more companies or way more opportunities.
Yeah. And for right now, AI does so much of the busy blocking and tackling and work for me. So in our product at AdQuick, it will help you, find the right units that meet your audience demographic. You don't have to go pouring through millions of right. different listings. Right. And so I think like, to me, that's the most exciting thing. And I think the stuff like you're working on where you're actually creating AI video creative, I think that's pretty exciting too. As long as for me, it's like the output is still there at a high level. And I think it's getting there. I think for me, some of the output in the past, at least it's just, sometimes it takes me like a bunch of generations to get to something I like, but it's actually getting better. So
I completely agree. Actually, it's mostly slop right now. There's nowhere that, video AI has like replaced anything at wholesale. And yes, even like a cool hot startup that you'll see on Twitter, you'll go check it out. You'll try to build something yourself. Mostly it'll be more pain than it's worth in 2025. And I know people have been saying this for a few years now. Oh, just wait. But I really do think we're at a tipping point where I'm starting to see AI content, AI things, that Andre Karpathy podcast, and I'm like, I enjoy this. Like, I really like this. What we're doing at AirPost is super ambitious. It'll take us time to get there. Already, my favorite test, the way we do evals is I'll show 3 ads. I did this on a big Motion webinar, and I was really happy with the results, and say which one was AI, which one is manual, and which one was done with AirPost. And people mostly couldn't guess. And the other thing to note, Adam, is our stuff is real actors, real footage. It's not weird, uncanny, spaceshipy stuff. It's just it's almost like AI orchestration, where it's taking all the real footage and the sunk cost and the Dropbox folders full of stuff that people have, and stripping out overlays and copy, which is brand new. Like, we can actually do that. Using our AutoCut technology we're patenting to like actually find all the good bits in that 12-minute founder video or whatever, between different cuts, and then throwing that in the pantry, looking at the recipe books, making ads, making iterations. So hopefully it could be really useful to people there. In like you said, I know I need to try different hooks for this top performing ad, or I know I need to try something at this audience or that audience. It's trying to enable that. It's not trying to make creepy, AI footage or anything.
Cool. So, John, one more question that I think would be interesting, and this is with or without AI, because you've done so much work with vertical video. I mean, what is, I guess, some of the things that go into an actually watchable video for a brand, whether it's an ad, whether it's a product launch, any kind of video for a brand online? What are some things you've learned that would be helpful for all marketers, whether they use you or not?
Semi-ironically, there's one word that came to mind right when you started asking the question, and it's in bright lights for me, which is authenticity. And like, cynically, let's call it the feeling of authenticity, right? Like, the thing about that podcast, History's Mysteries, is it really did sound like 2 people who knew each other well, this guy and this girl, curious about the Mary Celeste, and like it felt authentic. And I think that for an ad to work, it has to feel authentic. It's the same reason we figured out early on that, widescreen or even vertical, shiny, I call them, brand ads don't really perform, because it's okay. Yeah, this is an ad. This company's saying I should buy their product. I've been seeing these my whole life. Whereas for almost any brand, something shot with a phone that's really gritty and it's like shaky as she goes to like unbox the thing. Okay, I see. That's what the product looks like when it gets to your house. Oh, that's how she uses it on her skin. Whatever, that sells products. So authenticity. Beyond that, it's really being smart around having, knowing who your audiences are. And you're right, deep research and the models can really help with that. And we develop personas for people, for them to review as well in their brief. And having different ads at different personas, different value props. Basically, we have a refrain: volume and variety. Most people don't have nearly enough volume of video ads, and they don't have nearly enough variety. Like, you might be listening to this thinking, oh, we've had the same top performing ad for like 11 months and it's not even that good, and it's just hitting this one note over and over. And that's great that it's working, but I promise you there are other ads that'll work as the same or better. It's not going to be your last performing ad. And usually the thing that people are missing is just trying a different message, different offer, different persona. And that's what we're trying to enable with AirPost.
Yeah, I tend to agree, because when you're using online platforms, the ad platforms are created by engineers. And so you almost need, and some marketers hate this, but you almost need not an engineering, but like almost a social scientist approach, where you're like, I actually don't know what's going to work. And so but it's cheap to run 20 different tests, as you said, versus kind of the really traditional marketers who say, and I think there's something to this too, if you're really good at it, where you just have that one message you continue to hit them over the head with. And I think that, but it's the difference, right, between if you are Coke and you have hundreds of millions of dollars with ads, then you can do that. But if you're not Coke and you're just, you have an e-commerce store or like a new startup and you just need some traction, I would say like, yes, build your brand, but also you need to do things that actually convert right now. So it's like almost, I feel like we almost have two types of marketer that are just perpetually giving advice and competing.
Yeah.
And there's probably room for both. And I think you need like, you need a plan. You need to decide what you're doing and when.
100% there's room for both. I totally agree. I don't believe in the direct response versus brand, whatever, war. A few years ago, I was at a conference and I asked the room, how many people have heard of AG1? This was, now everyone knows it, but then it was like the hot thing on Facebook. A lot of hands went up. And I said, well, that's good branding. That's good top of funnel. Well, guess what? At that time, they were spending almost nothing on branding and top of funnel. It was because you saw it in your feed constantly, right? So like Facebook ads is branding as well. Direct response is branding as well. We do hims and hers. Like they do a brilliant job of having a beautiful, shiny brand at the top of the funnel, the website, Gronkowski, whatever, and then actual real authentic ads at the bottom. So I think it's not a fight. It's actually all part of the same funnel.
I think there's probably a maturation thing too, because AG1 started scrappy, Airbnb as well started scrappy, and now both of them have kind of earned the place in the world to be able to do, AG1's doing Joe Rogan, right? That's a branding exercise as much as it is direct response. Airbnb does amazing, TV creative and these big stories. And so I think I actually think you have to start scrappy and work your way up to even justifying the investment of doing brand.
I agree. And the people who get it wrong are like, all right, I raised a little money. I got this consumer product. I'm going to go hire a brand agency and pay them 6 figures to come up with a better logo. I think that's probably not the way to start. I think starting DR is important. You said something important a moment ago that I wanted to catch, because this is exactly what we're trying to solve for, which is, it's cheap to just try different things. I think that historically, and if you're switching out a hook or whatever, that can be true, of course, but to try a lot of things is mostly too expensive, time-wise, like headspace-wise, money-wise, particularly with video. And it's been scarcity, basically. It's like, you talk to a lot of mid-sized e-com companies, are like, yeah, we know this is a problem. We just haven't gotten around to making new video ads. We're thinking of this platform or that platform. What we're trying to do is say, put in this product link, click this button. Here's 200 things to try. Start testing them right now. And not just like different hooks or different blue versus light blue, but like wildly different parts of the map. We have this thing we call the creative genome. So that's, I think, the crux of it for us, like for AirPost, is people don't find it easy and cheap to test tons of different video ads. And we're trying to help enable that. And you're right, Coke or Hims can, but most can't.
Well, John, this has been great. Really enjoyed the discussion. Where can people go to connect with you online? And we'll also put links to these places in the show description as well.
Yeah, I'm just John Gargiulo on LinkedIn, Garg. And you can go sign up for AirPost at airpost.ai. We're endeavoring to be the best at getting authentic video ads with real footage to help folks scale.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining, and we will see everyone next week on the show.